The Dead Space trilogy is my favorite game series of all time. Yes, even despite the obnoxious love triangle subplot in the third one. We'll get to that sometime.
We'll get to that sometime. We'll get to that sometime.
Ah, shit. Here we go again.
Hello friends, my name is Volantis, and your boy is already rehashing old ideas. Since my first no running challenge, I wanted to try beating Dead Space 2 and 3 the same way. I've already done 2 challenges for Dead Space 2, so I want to try something for the third game. So, can you beat Dead Space 3 without running? I specifically mean not using the sprint button. Scripted events don't count. I'll be doing a new game on hard mode because that's standard for my challenges. I'll attempt to complete every single side mission in the game while I'm at it. I'll only briefly cover those as they're not required for completion. And for the sake of time, I'll only be addressing the harder or more concerning areas and important story bits. You don't need to hear me say, then I killed this group of enemies, over and over and over and over again. Now let's begin. Much like for most of us, we are thrust into this frozen hell against our will and given absolutely no information on what the fuck is happening. Luckily for you, I'll be your guide on this tour of eternal torment. All you need to know right now is that I need to find something called a codex. Before I find it, I have to fight off a new enemy to the series, Wasters. They become more durable later, but the Sloth God's protective blessing helped me dispatch them with ease. I find the codex, after which I am promptly executed. How can I make it any clearer what's happening? Okay, that's pretty much it, so let's move on to the actual important character of the game. Isaac is moping around his apartment longing for his ex-girlfriend, while also ignoring her calls. What? Suddenly I'm surprise attacked by a couple military jagoffs. Robert Norton, huh? You sound like a douchebag. Nice Valor patch, by the way. I ass-blasted a lot of your friends 6 years ago. Robbie volunteers me to help them on a rescue mission to find none other than my ex-girlfriend, Ellie. The plot thickens. I immediately get separated from Bobo and Scarface, as you will come to see as a recurring plot convenience in this game. Because I don't practice anything before going into these challenges, I awkwardly reacquaint myself with the controls while I get a few new holes installed in my meat suit. Thank God for early game low damage output. Anyhoozles, the unitologists are less durable than necromorphs, and head and body shots do sufficient damage. Because I myself am not taking a lot of damage, I have no trouble getting past them and continuing on my mission. Once I reach what was supposed to be the extraction point, I got cheap shot by one of those religious fruitcakes. I exchange pleasantries with Jacob Danik, another religious fruitcake who releases one of the markers, unleashing a new necromorph outbreak onto the city. I manage to escape and have to fight through a few wasters and slashers on the way to the train station. I can take a lot of them out from a distance or use stasis to slow them down. These necroturds are still fairly weak to my guns, so they don't cause me much trouble. I got the train running and my boys Roberto and Johnny are here to extract my ass. It's a quick, easy shootout normally, except Isaac walks slower than a goddamn frozen snail through syrup. I was not aware before this run that the final train car is timed to explode, and walking is simply not fast enough to make it off in one piece. But not to worry, I have a simple strategy. In my original no running challenge, I got past the centrifuge by realizing I could aim my gun while walking to move just a smidge faster. I figured the same was true for this game. As expected, it was enough to kick Isaac's ass into second gear and catch up with the ship with time to spare. So good news, Chapter 2 is very short and there aren't even any enemies to fight. We arrive in orbit of Tau Volantis, but our dumb shit pilot flies us right into a minefield, completely destroying our ship. Thanks, assface. I take a brisk jog through the ship for a suit, and before you say anything, no, I'm not running here. This is Isaac's default movement speed. See? There's this zero-gravity rail shooter thing, but it's not important. We make it to the ship we intended to reach anyway, the Roanoke. The 2 incredibly minor Act 1 side characters are stuck in a box, so I guess it's up to me to continue on. I come across the first bench, but I can't really craft anything right now, so I just put an upgrade circuit into my plasma cutter and move on. Through the big-ass door is a dank, decrepit hallway with slashers superglued to the ceiling. Luckily, these greasy bastards don't know how to run, so I pump their asses full of lead and plasma. I also got a little practice in tearing limbs off and using them as throwing knives. This technique should be a major help in getting me through the run. I need to reactivate this big mamma jamma so I can take the elevator to the top of the spire. This room sucks. Wasters are tough sons of bitches. They're pretty resilient now, and they move fast and hit hard. I got double-teamed by them, then polished off by a lurker. I went heavy on the stasis and limb shooting to protect my sweetmeats. They don't stay frozen for long, but just long enough to reduce their heart rates to 0. I got the generator fired up, and one quick elevator ride later, I'm reunited with the big-boobed damsel in distress. Let the love triangle commence. Bruh. I stop at the bench before leaving and add a pistol to my submachine gun. Nothing fancy, but it's better than no weapon at all. 3 bulbous tentacles have made themselves at home in the generator room. I'm such a badass that shooting their tumors caused them to explode so violently that they made no noise. I journey upstairs and arrive in the Admiral's quarters and gaze upon the masterpiece she has left for us. According to what we can decipher of her named Drivel, we apparently need to make a special key that deactivates a special alien device that controls the markers on the special planet because this is where they come from. Or is it? Hey guys, how much does tungsten cost? Under $1. That ass for brains calls me just to embarrass himself trying to act like an alpha male. Don't kid yourself, Norton. We all know Isaac is at the top of the food chain. The Greely is nearby, so I pop over and clear out the necro bastards that have taken over. This mission wasn't hard in the slightest. Aside from the occasional expected hit I took here and there, my kinesis skills were on point and I survived with little trouble. I even punched a crusty bitch to death in a room that's so small even Harry Potter would feel uncomfortable. I added an electric charge to my arc welder and a telemetry spike to my plasma cutter, giving me a cutter rivet gun combo. Now aboard the Terra Nova, our current objective is to repair the Crozier so that we can fly anywhere that isn't here. I got boned hard in this cargo area. I climbed down the ladder and got a train ran on me by some slashers. I literally couldn't aim low enough to shoot one.
Bullshit! What a bunch of fucking bullshit!
Instead of wasting medpacks and ammo, I used the explosive canisters to yeet the slashers into the neighboring galaxy. Once at the tram station, I got cornered again by a couple slashers and a waster. This is what's hard about the run right now. My guns are already pretty weak against these 2 necros in particular, and I don't have any kind of crowd control weapon, so I'm pretty much guaranteed to take an ass beating from these guys for a while. On the way to Cradle Ops to fix the tram, I encountered the first of only 2 Guardians in the game. These ones don't spit out those tentacled hemorrhoids. Instead, they spit out infector bugs. But if I stay far away from the Guardian and pick off the other douche nozzles, then it becomes easy as hell to exterminate it. Some dumbass left cargo on the tracks, so I boot up my Xbox and get to work. What the fuck is that? Some pukers show up wanting to snatch my Xbox to play Halo and gave me the boning of a lifetime in doing so. After a couple sad attempts, I remembered I could kinesis catch the puke and fire it back for a one-hit KO. Baller.
Bullshit!
The regenerator is bad enough in a normal playthrough, but my heart rate is through the roof when I can't run. Aiming my gun helped me crawl along just a smidge quicker, but I still had to defend myself against 2 of those regenerating pricks and leapers. Mr. and Mrs. Axolotl are easy enough to slow down by revoking their leg privileges, so it was mostly a waiting game while I fragmented the leapers' bodies. So the first fight in the conning tower was so annoying that I would rather shit in my hands and clap. There are so many enemies in this room. My cake couldn't have gotten eaten any harder if we were at a wedding full of fat people. Nevertheless, I stuck with it because I'm not a bitch. I managed to survive after 6 attempts. I just had to learn when to camp and when to move. Eventually the assault slows down to 1 enemy at a time, which is child's play to deal with. If that fight taught me anything, it's that I'm getting gangbanged pretty often and trying to fight out of it with the pistol whip special, so I crafted a new weapon that should aid in my brutality, a force gun with a hydraulic hammer. The force gun is pretty weak, but it does exactly what I need it to and knocks down those grimy bastards so I can switch to my cutter and tear them to pieces. It saved my ass multiple times during this mission. I raided Edward's stash and rock out with my out on the way back to the tram.
Well, was it worth a look?
Fuck me!
I find the whereabouts of the Crozier, but much like your granddad's balls, it's dusty and hasn't been used in a couple centuries. After stopping at the bench to craft the relay for the Crozier, I added the compact directed ejection field tip to my rivet gun, changing it to a much deadlier revolver. I got the relay installed, but the shuttle still needs fuel, a minor task that my force gun and revolver were able to easily handle. Boobs McGee mistakes the fuel pump for the ignition switch. I know, I do it all the time. And I need to hightail my ass out of here. I'm still afflicted with the curse of snail speed, so I shatter the regenerator's femurs and use my patented aiming strat to get me past the fire hazards. I got a little too close for comfort, but stasis saved my ass. I have some fun blasting anything and everything that moves to smithereens until the bay doors give me the finger and decide to explode, sending me hurtling back into the void. I looted the huge area outside the Terra Nova, put a bunch of upgrades into my suit, retrieved the spare engine for the Crozier, and collected the flight recorders needed for navigation. Easy peasy. I added a planet cracker tip to my plasma cutter and decided to turn my revolver back into a submachine gun. An SMG uses less ammo for easy things like exploders, so I figured it was more beneficial. Norton tries to play captain as if he's the one leading this mission.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck your ass!
Anyway, Isaac's not a good pilot. We did technically reach our destination, but not without the sacrifice of the 2 minor side characters whose names I only know because I've played this game so many times. Whose idea was it to make me fly this piece of shit instead of, you know, the actual pilot?
Wait, you're CEC?
Heavy equipment pilot, class 4. You?
The supporting character separated from the main character plot convenience rears its ugly head once again. I'm left stranded in the bitter, unrelenting cold of the planet's surface with my useless suit unable to keep me warm. Moving fast enough to stay near the fires and keep my carcass from freezing is not difficult in the slightest though.
We're on our way to find some shelter, but I'm gonna leave you this trail of flares.
If the man's dead, Ellie, let's go!
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would.
I got yeeted by an enormous snow crab, but flying hundreds of feet through the air doesn't completely shatter my spine and ribs and puncture my lungs at all. During my perilous journey, I come across a generator that supplies a heat source and activates a bench. I swapped my hydraulic hammer for a shotgun and completely rebuilt my planet cracker with an elite frame so that I could have double the upgrade slots. From here, it's easy to take out a few frosty butt monkeys with my force gun shotgun combo, then retreat back to the nearest heat room, rinse and repeat until I meet up with Buckle. He succumbs to the cold and dies a brave yet unceremonious and anticlimactic death. Hashtag justice for Buckle. I added an electric charge to my machine gun, then descended into the depths of a frozen hell to find a snowsuit. This is where my SMG really comes in handy. Down here we get acquainted with a new enemy called Feeders. They're large in number and insanely weak, which is wonderful for gathering resources. Next obstacle is the pump room. I was worried this was going to be another centrifuge disaster, but stasis and aiming made it pain-free. I found a handy-dandy suit kiosk and changed to the Arctic survival suit. Ellie and the boys can wait a little longer. I'm going to make a quick detour and raid the nearby supply depot. I added a stasis coating attachment to my shotgun before heading into the abuse I was about to take. There were a few tough fights in this section. Some spots were so cramped that I probably couldn't have run if I wanted to, but my force gun kept a lot of them away from my meat while I shredded them to pieces with lead and dismembered limbs. The last ambush was even harder. 12 feeders, 7 slashers, and 3 pukers, all in a 2-minute window. I owe a big debt of gratitude to my collection of health packs. Without constantly healing during this fight, who knows how long I'd have been at it trying not to take any damage. I continue my trek through the tundra and eventually find John Boy, but before I can reunite with the bros, Alaska the Snow Crab is ready for a colossal tussle. This encounter had me a bit nervous, TBH. It already moves faster than me, so realistically, what chance do I have while moving slow as ass? Well, a very good chance actually. All I had to do when it started charging was just turn slightly to the right, and its horrendous depth perception made it miss me nearly every time. My shooting accuracy, much like my sex life, can only be described as average at best. But hey, they say patience is a virtue, and it didn't take long until her big crusty ass scampered away into the fog. That ungrateful jealous cuck starts up another pissing contest, but I am not in the mood. Isaac sums up my opinion on Norton better than I ever could.
He's a real asshole.
Santos says that we need to reach the other side of the complex to build a device that can track the signal of the alien machine's location. Sounds easy, I guess. Is no one gonna mention that Buckle's dead? No? Okay. I'm flying solo once again, and I have to fight off a bunch of Danik soldiers on the long walk to the warehouse. They're easy, so it's nothing worth worrying about. I put some upgrades into my suit before making it to a strange circular cage. So the only way through is to release this enormous drill. Well, there's no way anything bad will happen. The massive hand mixer is loose and I'm stuck right in the mixing bowl ready to be turned into necro stew. This was one of the main parts I was very nervous about doing in this run. However, the Necros here seem considerably weaker than normal, so rather than worry about them, I focused on destroying the drill core as quickly as possible. Once it's completely wrecked, all the Necros despawn. Santos explains that we, or more accurately I, need to find a way inside this big sumbitch. After restarting the furnace to thaw the gargantuan icy turd, Santos informs me that I, need to build a probe so that we can poke around in the Nexus's butthole. On the way to the other side of the complex, I'm introduced to Stalkers, the best enemies to fight when you can't run. I have to kill them fast or get my guts rammed through my spinal column. Conveniently, there's plenty of distance between us for me to give them the Uno reverse. I took one good spear to the gut, but my SMG shredded their legs to bits and kept me alive. I collected all the sensor parts, and once I returned to the staging yard, I'm jumped by Alaska the Snow Crab looking for round 2 of the Jumbo Rumble. This fight went almost identically to the first encounter, except I had this mountain of cargo in the center of the battlefield to keep some room between us. But other than that, it was a lot more of me slowly sidestepping its charge attack, stasising it, and plucking out its thousands of regrowing tentacles. I'm right outside the Armory, so I pop in to say hello and take all of their shit. It's mostly feeders in the first half of this mission, so it's a great way to stock back up on resources. Deeper in, there are some slashers I had to be skillful in handling, but overall this section wasn't too bad. I got the munition stash and made my way back outside. I played around with the weapon crafting a bit and decided to swap my shotgun for an anchored bolus gun. This was arguably the best decision I ended up making in the whole run. While it has slightly less damage output than the shotgun, the bolus hangs around for a few seconds and will shred necro tootsies into pulp. I spread that fat beast's legs open and dove on in. But enough about what your mom does on a Friday night. All I gotta do is take my little probe and shoot it into a nerve cluster. Should be simple, right?
Right.
Oof, if only that was all there was to it. After shooting the first and third hemorrhoids, a horde of enhanced feeders attack. These burnt little shits take at least triple the abuse of their standard counterpart. Stasis kept me from being skinned alive against the first wave, but I wasn't so lucky on round 2. I didn't have my force gun with me, so anytime I got overcrowded, I tried a stasis and melee combo. But it went so poorly, I could feel my brain smoothing by the second. Instead of being a big dumb caveman smashing things with my fist, I thought, hey, what about this shooty thing that I have? Stasis helped limit the damage I took while I reloaded, and despite very nearly dying a third time, I activated sharpshooter mode and sent the children to their doom. I walk outside and... Ow! I got pistol whipped by one of Danik's boys. Jake reveals that he struck a deal with Norton to betray us. Wow, shocker. As if we didn't know he was an untrustworthy douche. All the commotion has attracted the attention of a certain freshly thawed creature. Suddenly we are attacked by Diet Hive Mind. Damaging this thing is arguably just as easy while walking. The Nexus has a big yellow heart you gotta shoot while avoiding getting flattened by its arms and scratched to death by a bunch of feeders. Once you damage it enough, it'll try to give Isaac the big suck where you try and shoot the yellow spots around its mouth. Once it does this for the third time, it'll swallow Isaac whole. Inside the belly of the beast was tricky though. There are 3 nests you have to shoot while avoiding its red homing missiles. In hindsight, I'm not sure why I didn't just boost left to right to avoid them. I mean, it's not like it's a sprint button in this environment, so it wouldn't fail the challenge. But regardless, I eventually shot them all and was sucked through the gooey sphincter and shat back out onto the cliffside. Assface's testosterone bubbles over and it comes down to a Mexican standoff between the two of us. Oh, I have been waiting for this moment.
Yeah, he's dead as shit.
I meet back up with the gang sans Bobby. I recounted the epic story of me blowing his brains out, but Ellie seems sad for some reason. Maybe I didn't tell it right or something. Oh well, she'll learn to appreciate a good story in due time. There's a bunch of cliff climbing in this chapter, which is needlessly annoying, but you can't run while doing it, so it's the same as usual. Along the way, we pass through a couple caves with some turd boys inside. Nothing but a cakewalk for my force bolus gun. One bout of expert puke catching later, and I reach the landing for the lift. The crew meets me there, and before Santos can exit said lift, she's attacked by the abominable snow bitch. It's too dangerous to try and save her, and Carver makes the executive decision to let her be dragged down to the snowy depths. Sorry, Santos, your death is needed for Isaac's character development. Suddenly, the entire cliffside explodes, but only Isaac is sent tumbling down the mountain. He miraculously survives thanks to his hefty plot armor, but something about this place doesn't feel right. Alaska the Snow Crab emerges from the fog for the final scuffle, and she's brought friends this time. Well, that hardly seems fair.
I thought this would take longer than it did, given the extra enemies and having to hurry to the harpoon crank, but no. She waited patiently for me to get to it and shear her body in twain. Isaac 3, Alaska 0. We reach a research facility, I get cock-blocked, then my friends point and laugh at me after falling off a ladder.
What a fucking loser!
Once inside the facility, I dispose of a few wasters, put a bunch of upgrades into my suit, and meet my friends in the Rosetta lab. Long story short, I have to find the missing Rosetta pieces, then reassemble her so we can create a codex. You know, that thing I briefly mentioned at the start of the game. I'm attacked by a bunch of slashers on the bridge to paleontology. Kind of a stressful fight, as they attack from in front and behind at the same time. I use the force gun to knock them back, which also applies a small amount of stasis, thanks to my stasis coating attachment. Then when they're on the ground all spread eagle, I fire a bolus under them to shred them apart. This is a really efficient combo and restricts their ability to damage me. Before I can acquire the first slab, I need to eliminate the horde of feeders in this room. My strategy?
Blend them into dust. Any of those child-sized skeletons that managed to sneak past my energy blade of death was subject to the brutal, rib-shattering power of my force gun.
I complete the pointless tube puzzle to retrieve the first slab and same-day ship it over to Ellie. Seriously, what is the point of this machine? There is almost nothing worth talking about in the Reaper Barracks. It's another side mission, but it's pretty much a copy of the way station in Chapter 9, just in reverse. I already established that the battering ram things aren't an issue, and this entire section has fewer enemies and more room to work with than other missions. Back to the task at hand. The Paleo Hall needs sanitized, but the valve is at the other end of the hallway. I figured the best course of action would be to turn it from as far away as I can grab it, then aim walk back to the safe room. Even after nearly getting my soul cooked out of me, I still made it back without dying. On the next bench stop, I rebuilt my Force Bolus gun with an Elite Heavy frame to again double the amount of upgrade circuits I can have. I also added an ammo support attachment to increase my overall clip size and added a stasis amplifier to my planet cracker. More feeders await in the Paleo room, but a convenient open doorway means complete and utter devastation to all who cross my path. Slab number 2 secured, and some chunky crotch gobblers try to get the jump on me when I go for the exit. As usual, my bolus gun keeps them all from trying to chomp on my cheeks. One of Danik's gunships spots me on the way back to the facility. I'm not sure if you can actually get by undetected, as I didn't even come close to their searchlight, but nonetheless, I got to my destination, but not without a few dozen more holes in my meat suit. Nearly 15 chapters in, and we're still encountering new enemies. And these aren't even the last ones. A Twitcher emerges from the snow and completely eviscerates the soldiers standing before me. Big preach on that, but I'm the apex predator, so nothing is allowed to live. Just like every blackened bitch before them, they succumb to the power of my boluses. Biology houses the second of 2 guardians, which is a total pushover. A couple well-placed boluses sent it to the great beyond. Despite being attacked from multiple angles, my force gun was a lifesaver once again. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Anyway, slab number 3 acquired. Another stalker fight on the way to the geology lab, and, well, let's say their lights don't turn on in the attic, if you know what I mean. I grab the final slab from geology and start heading back to my pals. As to why Carver couldn't have gone and grabbed 2 of them, who knows? You know what? I'm tired of doing everything by myself. I'm gonna go do a side mission and take out my frustration on some reanimated cold meats. Disposal Services has been overrun with enhanced wasters. You know the drill by now. Blow them away like a fart with the force gun, then tear them up like a Taco Bell toilet bowl with a bolus. The final room had me in the first half, not gonna lie. Exploders and feeders aren't even worth mentioning at this point, but when the Twitchers and Wasters arrived, they started taking me to Pound Town. I almost lost the fight due to a complete and utter horsecockery of game programming. At first I had no idea what happened and why I got stasised, but eventually I noticed that one of the boluses I shot actually stuck to a Waster's severed head, which got knocked back toward me by a Twitcher. When the bolus then detonated, it friendly fired on me and froze me in place, leaving me wide open to receive a thorough futt-bucking. But my stash of med packs saved the day again, and those rotting jabronis went down harder than Riley Reid at a sausage party. Alright, Eleanor and Jonathan have waited long enough. I trudge back to the Rosetta lab to start puzzle piecing my way towards building a codex. I duct tape that bitch back together, and with the flip of a switch, I'm transported to another dimension to watch a really cool short film. Long story short, the machine we learned about in Chapter 4 doesn't control the markers. It froze a convergence event 200 years ago, hence the half moon we saw earlier. Turning off the machine will resume it, which is bad.
However, the newly built codex can also reconfigure the machine to destroy the incomplete moon by pulling it down to the planet. Well, old Jakey boy spawns out of nowhere and takes the codex from me. Luckily, his cronies have the reaction speed of a roadkill cat when I activate a convenient gas trap, allowing Ellie and John to break their hold. The escape sequence was another instance where I figured walking may cause me to die, but no, aim walking was sufficient. Ellie was way too slow though, and isn't able to make it out with Johnny and I.
Bye-bye, bitch.
Isaac's eyes turn cold with the look of a killer. I finally come out on top of this love triangle, and now my woman is dead? That son of a bitch Danik will pay. I blasted a bunch of soldiers and stalkers on the way to catch up with Danik. This last area with broken down machinery has a few twitchers and a couple rocket launching soldiers, but all I had to do was force blast and bolus combo the twitchers from behind this machine, then catch the rockets when the coast was clear and fire them back. Easy dub. I reach the elevator shaft and the chase begins. You can rappel down the walls, but you can't run, so shut up. There also aren't too many enemies, so this entire chapter plays 99% identically to a normal run. I did come across another suit kiosk and changed to the elite suit and put a bunch of upgrades into it. At this point, my health, armor, every aspect of stasis, and kinesis range are fully upgraded. My kinesis damage is one upgrade shy of max as well, so I think I'm kicking ass. On round 3 of the descent, a new enemy emerges from the walls, crawlers. These aren't a challenge, I just felt like addressing that 4 chapters from the end of the game, we are still coming across new enemies. 2 enemies as a matter of fact. The other one is technically new to the series, the alien. It's basically the brute, so that's what I'm gonna call it. Right off the bat, the brute hit me with the bitch you thought. He don't tolerate any bullshit from my force gun, so I needed to go heavy with the stasis and plant lots of boluses with some supplementary shots from my planet cracker. There was another one on the landing platform, but I had the high ground on him and took it out much more easily. One more descent, and I chose to cut the legs off the 2 brutes here so they would just fall to their doom in the darkness below. A giant fan tries to circumcise me, but I didn't come this far to be stopped now. I learn the secrets of the alien herpaderp machine and meet Carver on the precipice of Green Lantern's secret hideout. After a heartfelt moment with my homie, we split up and start tracking down Danik. We catch up to him very quickly thanks to some exploding architecture and take back control of the codex. Halt! Go no further. One last side mission before we continue. Artifact storage eclipsed any other part of this game in terms of what made me anxious. Why? You'll see. I crafted extra ammo, stocked up on med packs, and made sure my guns were sufficiently upgraded. I'm a surgeon with my weapons, so getting through this area was easy. Like surgery, you know? What scared me was walking into the room with the treasure and seeing this shit. Not 1, not 2, not 5, but 4 regenerators. That's not fair, dude. The next hallway immediately throws 2 of those supernatural fucknuts at you. I put them down nearly long enough to do the fuse puzzle, but one of them stabbed me just in the nick of time. There is very conveniently a little nook with a vent just down a ladder near the door. As I'm sure the developers intended, I used it to slow down the regenerators and quickly knock out the fuse puzzle. I reach the exit where 3 of those shit munchers make a pathetic attempt to stop me from leaving. I blast them all with the force, shove a bolus up each of their asses, then make like a tree and get the fuck out of there. I reach the first conduit for the machine, activate it, then I'm attacked by 3 brutes. They started really giving me the business, but I figured if I just overwhelmed them with stasis and bolus shots, they would eventually succumb to my assault. I used the TK disc to decimate the entire feeder population and embarrass some slashers by ripping off their limbs and stabbing them with them. I reached the heart of the alien machine. We're so close to glory, boys. I'm sure my path to activating this thing will be completely danger-free. I wandered into the nest of a bunch of stalkers. They're not so bad on their own, but I kept having to take my attention off of them to deal with a half a dozen enhanced wasters. This allowed the stalkers to turn my ribs into bone powder one by one, but my handy med packs bailed me out of trouble once again. Essentially the exact same thing happened in the next fight. I saw an exploder about to flank me from the left, but the stalkers beat my ass down before I could react to it, with no med packs to save me this time. The second try was still chaotic as hell, but I wasn't stupid enough to camp in a corner where I could be attacked from 2 directions this time. I still took some hits, but at least I got through it with my ribs intact. The last step to getting the conduit activated is completing this giant triangular ring puzzle. The TK discs really aided me in my attacks here. They allowed me to rip the limbs off the still moving necromorphs and use them to render them no longer moving. I got the terminal activated and started heading back to the initial configuration point.
I don't really know what to name the different areas on these paths, but this one rocky area with the TK discs has a surprise waiting for me. 3 more brutes. I struggled to eliminate 2 of them, and then a 4th one revealed its oogly face. I had been beaten down too hard and just didn't have the med packs to restore my life juice. They shat out another few crawlers that blew me to pieces. So I said, "Fuck you!" and gave them the finger and just walked past them. I returned to the configuration point, and shocker, another brute. I let the soldiers in the area damage it as much as their weak little spitball shooters could and finished it off myself. Then another fucking brute comes out. I actually ran out of ammo fighting this one. I was so annoyed by this that I went Super Saiyan and just bashed its brains out.
And this is to go even further beyond!
I put in the final configuration to open the heart of the machine. Now all I have to do is get there. During my Superman flight, Danik reveals my large-breasted friend is very much alive and he's holding her hostage. Back at the base of the machine, I fought off another army of unitologists and placed the 3 symbols in their proper receptacles. The door opened and I headed inside.
I remember telling my college professor I wanted to study xenoarchaeology. He laughed right in my face. There's nothing to study, he said. It's all dead space.
I climbed my way to the top of the machine and a standoff ensues between Isaac and Danik. I give him the codex and everyone dies. I keep it, Ellie dies. Boobs are great, but let's be realistic in which one is the better choice here. Carver snatches the codex and gives it to Danik, royally fucking all of us and the entire planet as well. Thanks, dude. Danik turns off the machine, resuming convergence. For his sacrifice, he gets permabanned from life. Now it's up to me to try and put a stop to this one last time. The planet is in no real hurry to try and stop me. I'm just taking a leisurely stroll while it crumbles away. I did die twice during this final stretch, but I think it's because I backtracked too close to the decaying walkway. I didn't check, but it doesn't really seem like a time sequence. It seems more like the pathway just crumbles behind you as you progress. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but this was the only thing during this final gauntlet that killed me. None of the enemies were an issue at this point. I reached the final safe room, where electricity miraculously still works somehow. I replaced any +1 damage circuits still in my guns with +2 damage, fully healed and fully stocked up. Now let's go kill one of the largest bosses in video game history. With my legs severely shattered, I'm stared down by the enormous papaya-looking ass eyes of the Blood Moon. If you are somehow still completely clueless about where my name comes from, here it is. The Blood Moon of Tau Volantis, aka the Volantis Moon. I need to blind this enormous bastard worse than Carl Grimes, but way more creatively. There are a ton of markers floating around me, so I grab one and fire it at Mach speed into Big McLargehuge's retina. It bursts into a fountain of raspberry jam, leaving behind something I can only call a vagina.
You suck!
While I wait for eyeball number 2 to become visible, I tear apart some necro limbs with the TK disc and blow away a couple tentacles before it can even think about giving me the big suck. I burst the second eye with another comically large pointy rock, rip off more limbs, blow up more tentacles, and rupture its final remaining optic nerve, securing me the biggest dub in human history. We reconfigure the codex, causing us to get blown away into the dusty void and the machine to pull the moon back down to the planet and return it to the Dark Ages. Well, that was fun. But we all know the true canon ending to Isaac's story hasn't been achieved yet. We still need to finish the Awakened DLC. I awaken a cave just below the planet's surface. We may or may not be dead, who knows. But one thing's for sure, we need a ship to return to Earth. Miraculously, a ton of man-made stuff down here still works just fine. How convenient. I stopped at the bench and fitted all my weapons with my newly acquired +3 circuits. Well, that guy looks familiar. Norbert appears to just be a hallucination and goes in for the attack. Wait, I get to kill this guy a second time? Hell yeah! Get fucked, Slashbert. The pregnants and pukers were very easy to pick apart, thanks in no small part to the advanced damage output of my guns now. I have another hallucination. This time I'm transported to a blood-red celestial battlefield overseen by a bunch of spaghettified moons and a shirtless guy holding a meat cleaver. Oh god, the ethereal semen demons are back. I got plenty of practice on the 600 feeders I've killed, so once I shred about 9 or 10 of these things apart, the hallucination ends. 2 scabby gorillas, 30 extraterrestrial toddlers, and 3 glowing worms later, I reach another stalker area. These ones look different, but they died on my bolus gun all the same. I reach the vehicle depot to find Carver in a ship waiting. Before I can join him, I have to fight through a couple more hallucinations. Total cake now that my planner cracker does fuck tons of damage. We get the ship fired up and set course for the Terra Nova to find a shock point drive we can use to get back to Earth. Next up, get to the mid-station and find the shock drive. I walk in to find the meat cleaver man filleting a dude's hands with the Buster Sword. What the fuck? Clearly I wasn't invited to this party and got attacked by a ton of cultists. I can literally just stand there and end them all. They're so weak that it makes me laugh. I'm back in that 2-level room that gave me so much trouble back in Chapter 6. There's some more kinky stuff going on, but I'm upset they didn't invite me again and crashed the party. The cultists transformed into necromorphs, and again they stood no chance. The cult leader... Hold on, I need a name for this guy. Cult leader... Colton? That'll do. Colton fades in and out, but he walks slower than I do, so he really poses no threat. Eventually he disappears and I can continue on. He also does some more spooky black magic while I walk around, but he's harmless for now. I find a suit kiosk and change to the engineering suit I got for completing the main game. Nothing quite like that classic Isaac Clarke look. I reach the room with the shock drive, but once I go for it, another massive hallucination triggers. I'm back on the marker battlefield. All I have to do is avoid Colton while killing a few burnt crotchlings, then blast apart the glowing marker. Easy squeezy. I've acquired the shock drive, but in all the chaos he's endured so far, Isaac has started to go batshit crazy. We need to get the drive to the reactor to power it up, but Isaac wants to destroy it instead so we can't lead the moons to Earth. Tough titties, Isaac, I'm gonna make you do it anyway. I, quote, fight Carver in this multi-level control room. It's another hallucination, and Carver couldn't kill me if he wanted to. But putting the final shot into him triggers the final transportation to the marker arena. 3 stages to this fight. Fill Colton with a metric ton of plasma until a marker begins glowing, destroy the marker, then light Colton up until he explodes, all while dodging or incapacitating some necrodorks. Honestly, it got pretty hectic at times, but it's nothing Isaac's overwhelming masculinity couldn't handle. By this late in the game, I take such little damage and deal so much of it myself that I'm not worried about any particular enemy.
You can kill the prophet, but you can't kill the god. Your chance to warn the earth has come and gone. We are coming.
I pop one final cap in Colton's spine, and that's the final boss, done and dusted. Isaac admits that Carver was right. The moons already know where Earth is, so we need to get the shock point drive powered up with the reactor. This entire section is in 0 gravity, so running isn't even a possibility. I force the reactor to overload in order to power up the drive, and boost my way back to the captain's nest before the ship is able to melt my face off. Just thought I'd crash through a tube again for old time's sake. Carver and I blast away and arrive in the safety of Earth space. All is good. Or is it? So can you beat Dead Space 3 plus Awakened without pressing the run button? Yeah. In fact, this one was much easier than Dead Space 1, thanks in no small part to already knowing the aiming trick going in. The environmental hazards were no trouble at all. How would I rate this challenge's difficulty overall? Well, I completed this run with only 20 total deaths. Pretty much every enemy encounter was identical to a normal run, except retreating wasn't an option. So I did take a bit more damage than usual, but not by much. So with that being said, I'd give this one a 4 out of 10. As usual, I will likely upload some proof videos to my second channel, Volantis Moon 2. If you're skeptical about any sections or would just like to see how I did it, feel free to suggest them in the comments below and I'll upload those as well. But that's it for today. Thanks for sticking with it till the end. If you enjoyed, click the like button and subscribe to my channel to see new videos when I put them out. It's totally free. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.